are you? Hope you're enjoying this fabulous weather and you're keeping cool. I hear the heat wave is about to break, so we might be having some cooler weather in the UK over the next couple of days. But it's fantastic to be here with you and talking to you about how to create a commercial and impactful HR strategy. We're going to start in a couple of minutes. So it'd be great to get to know you a little bit more. So if you get a second before you kind of tune in to this webinar, I'd love to know who you are and what organization you're from. And if you want to put your role, then that's fantastic. If you don't, that's absolutely cool with me. But it's wonderful to be talking to everybody today. Hi, Nikki. Pleasure. Really happy. This is one of my favorite, and I'm not just saying that, webinars to run. I've run this probably over the last 4 or 5 years, probably about 10 times. So I've updated it for 2026. So I'm looking forward to sharing insights and getting your thoughts and ideas and challenges along the way. So welcome to everybody. Thanks so much for those people that are joining us at the moment. Really looking forward to talking to you today. If you get a second, do put into the chat. It's always nice to know who I'm broadcasting to. And if you hear any snoring, it's Dylan, our Chief Dog Officer. He's doing good in the heat, but obviously for dogs, it's not always fantastic. So he's busy sleeping, as you would be at 9:15 on a Thursday. So morning, everybody. Hi, thank you so much for putting in a hello. Brilliant, Giovanna. You're from Argentina, but working from Spain. Well, congratulations on the football last night. I think I can be magnanimous and say that. So good luck on Sunday. And Anna, you've a French bulldog. Yes, you will know my. I don't know how old your French bulldog is, but Dylan is 7. No, going to be 6. Sorry, I've given him an extra year. He's going to be 6 this year. So hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Catherine, yes, they all love snoozing when you're on a call. 9 years, our Nina. Oh, wonderful. Well, we could go on forever and a day sharing doggy pictures, I'm sure, but you didn't come to talk about Dylan. You came to hear me talk about commercial impactful HR strategy. So I'm going to kick off and do that. Please keep saying hello in the chat. It's always great to chat to as many people as possible. And I'm going to be asking you some questions and as we go along. So welcome to how to create a commercial and impactful HR strategy. I'm Jo Taylor. I'm MD and founder of Let's Talk Talent. If you've been on one of these webinars before, you'll know a little bit about us. But if you don't, our mission and purpose is to help organizations get, keep, and grow brilliant people. We provide the loop between performance, the roles that people have, and the skills and capabilities they need now, and potential, the skills for the future, the behaviors, the attitudes, the roles that people need. You need to support them going forward. So we provide the loop between performance and potential, because fundamentally, I believe that everybody is talented. It doesn't matter what background, where you've come from, what country you live in, we all have potential. The question we don't ask ourselves, and we strive to help organizations delve into and find solutions for, is potential for what? And that's really a little bit of a segue into what we're talking today, because if you've got a HR strategy that not only drives high performance and a high performance culture, but unlocks the potential in your people, then ultimately you're going to be succeeding in getting, keeping, and growing brilliant people. Easy, right? Well, it's not as easy as that, and we all know that. And I'm being quite glib to start this webinar, but we're going to delve into that a little bit deeper in how you can start to build those commercial, impactful people, HR, culture strategies. So today's agenda really is focused on a number of things. First and foremost, we're going to talk about what is an HR strategy and where do you start. So we're going to define it simply. We're going to debunk some myths and think about why strategies stall. We're going to use a model. We're going to use our triangle model, and we're going to look at a big question. And we're going to delve into how you might use your question to create your commercial and impactful HR strategy. We're going to look at the components of that. So we call them building blocks and work streams. We're going to give you some real world examples. So it's no good me talking about it in theory. Let's look at what other people have done and give you some examples of how you might illustrate this and what you want to think about. So how you build data, stakeholders, buy-in ultimately, and continual engagement with what you're trying to deliver, whether you're trying to do that for the next 6 months or the next 3 years or the next 10 years. And then I've got questions. You've got questions. If you've got questions for me, I'm happy to answer them, but I'm also happy to answer them as we go. So please feel free to stop me, ask me, and put everything into the chat, and I will absolutely go there for you. So first of all, I wanted to launch a little bit of a quick poll with everybody and ask you very simply, do you currently have an HR strategy? So let me know if you do, if you don't, or you're on this webinar to understand because you're in the process of writing. So give me an idea of who's on the call and what your kind of agenda is. So looking at the results, we've kind of got 45% of you saying no. That's probably why you're on this webinar. Some of you, 36% of you are saying yes. So hopefully you're going to gain some tips to evolve it going forward. And about 20% of you are saying that you're in the process of writing. So hopefully this is going to appeal to all of you because I'm going to be able to give you tips and tricks to zhuzh, get you started if you haven't already started, and then build on what you're already doing. So happy days. Hopefully we're going to kind of get there over the next 35, 40 minutes. So let's look at the current landscape. And, this has fundamentally changed since I wrote this webinar. And I wrote this webinar very soon after COVID, where we, as HR professionals, we were at the table, right? And that hasn't fundamentally changed, but the world of work and the current discombobulation, economically, politically, has fundamentally meant that we as HR professionals need to think about things in a different way. And I feel that the world of work, the complexity, has become even more since COVID. But I think it's got even more exciting for HR. And let me tell you why. Because I think first and foremost, the skills that we need, if you look at any of the PwC, Deloitte, Gartner reports, they're saying that a lot of the skills that we have now in the workplace won't exist in 2030 or 2035. So the biggest shift, let's call the elephant in the room, is about AI. Now, this isn't about whether you use Copilot, Gemini, Claude. It's much deeper than that. It's going to affect the way that we recruit people, the way that we manage, the way that we have complexity, the way that we set up target operating models. So the use of AI adoption, and every organization is using it in some capacity, is accelerating the skills. And those skills have half-lives. And so they're shorter than they were 5, 10 years ago. So what we need now is not what we need fundamentally in the future. There are core things that we do, but AI, whether that's from an efficiency perspective, is having a big effect. Retention is still HR's number one challenge. So when you look again at some of those reports, over 60% of HR leaders globally rank it as a top 3 priority. So that's why we have always said that keeping and retaining brilliant people is as important as your talent acquisition strategy. And a lot of organizations in their HR strategy are not thinking about a clear strategy to address it. They're not thinking about how they're building those talent pipelines from apprenticeships, internships, graduates, because they are your leaders in 10, 15 years. I think with all of the discombobulation that's happening, mental health, economic uncertainty, and rising employee expectations are putting pressure on us as people teams, and what we're having to look after. If you look at CPOs, HRDs, agendas now, the scope of what we're looking at as a profession is deepening and expanding. And that means that our teams are growing, but also how do we build that expertise? But how do we also downstream that expertise into the organization so it doesn't all sit in responsibility to us? And I really see this in the clients that we have. And I'm sure some of you will hopefully agree with me that we're shifting as a profession from a support function where we're a kind of tie to the business to an absolute strategic driver. Where HR is at the top table. It doesn't matter if you report to a head of operations or a finance director, as long as you are at that top table and you've got a clear plan, then you are a strategic driver. If you're waiting for that information, then how do you get that and how do you move that forward? So that's where I see the landscape, and that's what we need to think about when we're putting together a commercial and impactful HR strategy. So the question for me isn't whether you need an HR strategy, it's whether yours is strong enough for what's coming. So it's not about creating a strategy for now, it's about creating a strategy for the future and starting to ask the organization some difficult questions. If you're at the table, then you're asking those questions that I've just laid out in the slide before. Because if you're not, then all you're creating is a plan with a number of milestones in it. So really think about, if you need one and your organization wants one, is it being future proofed, and are you thinking ahead, and are you thinking and understanding what's gone before, living in the present and planning for the future? So in my opinion, and what I believe and what we talk to our clients about, strategy is no more than creating a long-term plan with clear deliverables. Now, some people, I've written probably 20 HR strategies or people strategies, talent strategies in my working life of 35 years. And really and truthfully, you can either give it a capital S or you can give it a small s. But really, it's a plan for the time frame that you set, and that's completely your decision. And you should link it to your business plan, ultimately, the strategic plan of the organization. But it's a long-term plan with clear deliverables. Don't create something that sits in a drawer that's unwieldy, that nobody understands, that you get it out of your performance review. It needs to be owned by you, but disseminated and operationalized through your team and through the organization. So when you think about the things that I've just talked about, and I'm saying it's a long-term plan with clear deliverables, what worries you about creating an HR strategy? So let me ask you that question. Does anything worry you? Is it that you are being asked for something and you're not sure where to start? Do you not have the right data? Give me an idea of what, when you think about it and someone says to you, I want you to, Joe, I want you to create me a people strategy or a talent strategy. What goes through your mind? Because when I started, it really scared me because I thought they wanted something really incredibly detailed. So what scares you? Okay, so I'm getting some great comments here. Thank you so much. So, Catherine, you won't get copies of the slides, but if you join our WhatsApp group, which I'll give you more information at the end, you will get this recording straight after. So Kirsty, don't know where to start if an organization will take it on board. 100%. And I think that's worth considering. You might not need to have an HR strategy, you just might need a people plan. So let's think about how you might reframe it and check in about what the business wants. Hannah, the sheer scale, size, and what to prioritize, 100%. And data is a really critical part of that. And I'll give you some tips and tricks about that. Amy, being on board with it, not knowing where to start, ensuring it's flexible and never changing, leadership buy-in, how to link it back to the commercials, buy-in, for love it. Thank you so much. So really, there are kind of a couple of things going on here. Where to start, buy-in, relevance, and future proof. So we'll cover some of those elements. And again, if you want to talk through your specific needs with me, then please do drop me a message afterwards. And I'm really happy to have a chat with you and help you along the way. I do coach a number of HRDs and mentor a couple around their HR strategy. So really happy if you need some extra support, and the materials that I give you get you started. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So when you start, so some of you saying to me, where do you start? So for me, I start at the end point. I start with the outputs versus the outcomes that I want to deliver. So your outputs are the tangible KPIs which you're going to measure against. So these are your short-term wins. So they might be board-ready reports, talent maps, succession plans, engagement scores. So they are things that you might start to think about how you're going to measure the success of your people strategy. And then your outcomes, these are the sort of cultural benefits. So that could be ED&I, the quality of debate, leadership capability, things that will enable you to understand and bring the relevance back to the organization. So you need to think about not only hard metrics, but also the qualitative that's going to help you measure the success of any initiative that you're putting in place. And therefore, this is the model that I think does that. And we've been using the triangle model for probably, we're 11 years old now, probably 10 of those 11 years when I came up with it. And the reason why I love it is that first and foremost, it is a plan on a page. You can build in extra elements around your outcomes and outputs if you want to, but it levels up into helping you get, keep, and grow brilliant people, because that's our mantra. So I'm using our mantra. It starts with a big question. So we're going to go through this in a minute. And then it builds your strategic priorities in your building blocks, and then the deliverables in your work streams. So from top down to bottom up, it's all leveling into that big question, and enables you to think about stakeholders. It enables you to think about metrics. It enables you to think about audience groups and communication. So I think if you're thinking that strategy is no more than a plan on a page with clear deliverables, this gives you something to visualize for your leadership team, and then talk through and get buy-in and build the evidence ultimately of why you've created these elements. So don't just take my word for it. Let's kind of go through it together as a team. And we're going to use the exam question, how do you become a great place to work? And we're going to use that as our big question in the middle. And I'm going to show you how to then build from the model. So in understanding, when you think about your big question, and ours is how to become a great place to work, I always go back to Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. So why do you believe this is the big question? So what data points have you talked it through? Does it link to your business strategy? Because your business and your people plan ultimately need to work in harmony. How are you going to activate it? So those are your work streams. Those are the things that you're going to do. And what are the, I suppose, the strategic drivers, which are your building blocks? If your question can then build out into work streams and building blocks, then it's the right question. And the only way you're going to know if it's the right question is by looking at data, by talking to your leadership team, by looking at the direction of travel that the business is taking, and then think about what your role in your function is to deliver against that. And to do that, you might want to think about breaking your your people and what they need into personas. And that's where you could use persona maps to enable people and create who is your audience. So you'd create one for your senior leadership team, for example. You might create one for your managers. When you create your strategy, you're going to then break that down into personas and think about how that's delivering for that particular audience type. So building blocks are the strategic elements that together answer your exam question. So we've talked about that a little bit, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail. And work streams are the projects or activities that your team will deliver in practice. So both together are going to enable you to become a great place to work ultimately. And as in our example, get, keep, and grow brilliant people. Is this making sense so far? Any questions that you might have? So I might pause for a second and just check. Give me a thumbs up or, okay. I've got a question. Danielle, out of interest, what is the difference in your mind between people plan and HR strategy? So a people plan for me is probably a short term. It's probably 6 months of something that you need to quickly. It's like a project plan in effect for me. And an HR strategy is something that's probably from a year to 3 to 5 years. So it's got a longer term tail, an HR strategy. A people plan I see as a project that you might have a couple of elements and work streams, but it's not something that you're thinking future forward with. Hope that answers your question. Brilliant. Okay. So what's going to make up your building blocks and work streams? Now, I'm giving you examples. I suspect some of them will be relevant to you, but others you will want to play around with. And that's where your data, that's where your discussions with your senior leadership team will come into play. But I wanted to give you a starter for 10. So these are the building blocks that if you want to become a great place to work, and you want to get, keep, and grow brilliant people, are the ones that I feel are most relevant. And they feed into the landscape that we talked about. So the first one is being a great place to work. So for me, this is about how do we personalize the journey to create an experience for my people. So this is about the employee experience and making sure that we're understanding our personas, but we're also thinking about the individual, the consumer, at the end of any process that we're doing. So what are we saying externally in our careers site, in our recruitment process, in our career framework? How are we doing that? The second is around skills for now and the future. So what are the actual skills that we need to develop for my people? So, whether that's development pathways, whether that's AI, whether that's data and analytics, what are the skills that you need? So I do think there needs to be a building block around skills, and you could build a number of work streams from that. There's going to be, every organization is going through some sort of change, big, small, or massive, right? So I think there should be a building block around organizational change and technology. So what's the impact of technology? So this is specifically around AI and data, basically intelligence in the ways of working. How's that affecting automation? How's that affecting the systems that you're buying, that you currently have? How are they all talking to each other? So you're not creating duplication. You want to have skilled and inspiring managers and leaders. Let's not forget Marcus Buckingham's quote, people don't leave organizations, they leave bad managers. So you want to think about how are you, what is the bench strength of your managers? How are they inspiring, motivating, creating psychological safety, trusting their people? And then the final one is about performance and productivity. So how do you drive a culture of high performance? What is the innovation? What are the products? What are how are you expecting people to work, and how are you measuring performance and rewarding and recognizing that? So for me, these building blocks, whether you rename them, all have a purpose today in and probably for the next 2-3 years of how we could build our HR strategies. And some of them will have more importance, and that's where you start to think about where you might only work on one or two in a year because that's the burning platform. But over the life cycle of your HR strategy, all of those would be covered. And therefore, when you think about the being a great place to work, this is some of the elements that you might include. So you might include pieces on culture and EVP, AI and automation, competencies and careers, onboarding and induction, performance and development, talent and succession management. So, building that proposition will feed across the employee life cycle and feed across get, keep, and grow brilliant people. So here's some examples of an EVP that Nando's basically created, and it was around heart and soul and passion and personality. So they were really explaining to people what it meant to work and become a great place to work. And they wanted people to feel that they genuinely care for one another, and that it's not just about chicken, and that they're a family. And they built that into their whole employee experience, and they've won awards for it. So kind of wanted to give you that example in effect. And this is an example of how you might think about onboarding. So again, we're going into work streams now. So this was something that we did for a client around helping them create a seamless onboarding experience from offer through to the first 90 days. So if this is one of your work streams, hopefully that gives you some inspiration. This is also an example of if you're thinking about building a competency framework because you want to have skilled and impactful managers, you want to think about the skills that you need for the future. This is an example of a competency framework that we built for a biotech client. So what do you need to think about to deliver your strategy? So first and foremost, what data do you have? So I talked about that the beginning. So the people metrics, what are the gaps? Do you have exit interviews, pulse surveys? So start to think about what your burning question is and what your building blocks and work streams are by the data. Second of all, some of you asked, how do you get your stakeholders engaged? So do you know who your key stakeholders are? Have you mapped who's going to champion this? Who's going to help you drive this through? What's the questions that your stakeholders are asking of you? So, is your board worried about something? ED&I, for example, retention, launching a new product or service. What is it that you're being asked for continually from the business, but also requested in terms of how this links to the business strategy? Some of you are already got an HR strategy. Some of you are thinking about it. Is it a refresh, or are you creating something new? Have you come into a role where there's been an HR strategy and you're refreshing it, you're evolving it rather than revolutionizing it? Because you're going to do different things, right? You're going to build, if you're refreshing, on what you've already done. If you've already had an HR strategy and you're creating another one, or if it's a complete refresh, you're going to have to start to think about what the business needs and wants, and start from ground zero ultimately. What's your time scale and budget? Do you have the right team? Do you know, if your business strategy is for 3 years, link it to the business strategy? Do you have a budget to do some of this? Or are you going to have to, if you're an SME, do a lot of it yourself? So then don't create multiple work streams, or bring in, if you suppliers, providers, partners that can help you scale it really quickly. But knowing what that timescale and the expectations and linking it to the business and making sure you have some budget to do the work is going to be incredibly important. And then finally, how are you going to measure success? So what does good look like in 12 months' time? What are you measuring? Just the outputs? How do you have board ready reports? How do you keep the business informed about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and get feedback along the way so you can pivot and be really agile in your strategy is incredibly important. So hopefully those 6 areas and those questions will give you some food for thought, and be able to, when you're starting to think about whether you use the triangle or any other method, really put that into practice. Should we share the strategy with the wider business? 100%. If you create a visual, or you can create something on a page, and you have stand-ups, or you have all hands, or you have team meetings, 100%. The business needs to operationalize the strategy. Yes, you're going to put things in place, and you're going to be accountable and responsible, but you want the business to buy into it so that it doesn't become yours and not theirs. I really think that the only way a HR strategy works is where HR are like the conductors in orchestras, but they don't go and play the first violin or the flute, or the percussion. The business needs to understand what you're doing in the same way as it understands the business strategy, and understand what culture, what environment you are creating. So I know I got really passionate about that, but I really believe in communication, communication, communication. So yes, in short answer. So here's some examples. So this was a client that we worked with. They created a different version of their people strategy, and their strategy was about creating inclusion. So that was their number one, and they had 3 building blocks, and then they had a number of work streams. So the model can be completely adapted. And then they made sure that they had measurement, analyzing, and data. This is another example, one that I built for a charity. They wanted to create a metric on the left and the right hand side that measured their engagement score from and to. This was their exam question. And these were their building blocks, and these were their work streams. And they linked it to their values, and across measurement and comms. So you don't have to do it as a triangle. You can take it and build it into any model that you want, but ultimately you're still having an exam question, building blocks, and work streams. So remember the triangle. The triangle is your friend, whether you use it, as I said, as a triangle, but fundamentally go back to your big question. Link that to your business strategy, create ambitious, future-focused building blocks and work streams that enable you to deliver against them. Don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to get feedback, and to make sure that you communicate this always through your stakeholders, and make sure that it doesn't just sit with you. Ultimately. Any questions so far? Anything you'd like me to go into in more detail? Does that make sense in terms of how you create that commercial and impactful strategy? Because I want to share some free resources for you, but don't want to do that until you might have some questions. Thank you, Nikki. That's so kind. Brilliant. Okay, so here's some extra resources for you. So if you want to keep the conversation going, I promise you won't need to mute us. We're not talking every day. We're trying to create a community of like-minded people that want to share, support, and develop themselves, but also the wider community. So if you want to join our Let's Talk Talent Hub and Let's Talk Talent People, there's a QR code on the screen now. I promise you won't get bombarded, but this is where we're going to place all of our webinars. If you can't make them, they will be posted 24 hours normally afterwards. 48 at the most, and also you get sneaky peeks into resources before anybody else does. So there's a reason to do it, but as I said, that you won't need to mute us. We are an active group, but it's only active if people want to have a conversation. So hopefully some of you will join. That would be great. Sarah, do you have any resources on where to start with persona mapping? Well, we have a persona mapping tool which you can download on our website. I'm very happy to talk to you about how we run persona mapping offline if you'd like to, but you can download the tool on our website. So please feel free to do that. If you want to join the conversation, and we'd love to hear your input, we are creating we've created a very short survey of the to capture the strategy trends for 2027. So if you want to join our survey, please click on the link. I think the link that's gone up is actually our is the I mean, maybe the white paper, but if it isn't, hopefully you're clicking through and you're downloading. This is the link for the paper if you want to download the free HR strategy white paper. That would be great. I'm going to we will send a link to the survey, but if it didn't work, we will send that out to people. That would be fantastic. And if you want to also click through to our next webinar, the wonderful Craig will be talking about, sorry, one sec. I can't see what it is. Hold on one sec. The lead forward in the age of human and AI. Please feel free to register for that. Again, it's completely free. It's something that we're really passionate about. If that helps you in your thinking, then that would be awesome. So thank you so much for joining me. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to talk those through with anybody. If you want to contact me directly, please feel free to message me. That would be awesome. And I just want to say thank you so much for supporting Let's Talk Talent. You make these webinars such a joy to deliver, and we look forward to seeing you again in August, and then twice a month from September through to, dare I say it, Christmas. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great summer if you're taking time out. And I will see you back in September when we're going to be talking about future skills. Have a great day, everybody. And thank you so much. See you soon. Bye.